Market Musings podcast with Fairbairn and Russell. Hello and welcome to the Market Musings podcast here on Stockbox with Doc Holliday. Again, it's nice to have you back on our podcast, Doc. Of course, I did for the first time join your Twitter Spaces a week or so ago. I've been meaning to join that for a little while, but either forget or have appointments that I need to attend to. But it was good to join that, so I'm pleased you invited me to speak a little bit on that. I thought it was a very good little forum. I will try to join more regularly. But how are you doing generally? Welcome back onto our podcast.
Yeah, no, it's good. Thanks. It's good to be back. And yeah, I mean the little group is great. I mean, I think if you're a company and you want to go and do an investors lunch, whilst it's fantastic and lovely that everybody can sit around the table and quaff, there's definitely a requirement for people to be able to come together and during the trading day. So we don't record it, and that's to just kind of live in the now, so people can say what they feel and think, and then somebody's not beating around the head in 3 weeks' time because the stock price has gone down 30% or whatever. And it's just about trying to create a community where people can openly think, share some of their experiences, some of the thoughts, and we try and provoke some new ideas, and that's really what it's all about. And if we can get 150 people in there, of which a large portion of them are professional traders, I think it's a really valuable resource. But it's really proven to date to be fantastic as just a mode of helping people better understand the psychology of markets, sharing trading experiences and strategies, and discussing certain components of a trader's or investor's day-to-day life. So yeah, it's been fantastic. And
you often get some CEOs dropping in, don't you, as well? I know Darren Hazelwood was there and Jason Brewer's popped in occasionally as well. Nice little guest.
Yeah, I give Brewer a really tough time as well, because the wonderful thing about this is I'm not really, I'm not engaged in any way to be kind and polite and lovely. And I've got a view on Jason and a view on his company. And I don't say absolutely railroading him, but I give him a pretty tough time. I asked all the questions that people wanted to ask, and perhaps some of these other providers couldn't, put those questions to a company. And do you know what? I said it at the time. I said it when we last spoke, I think. He did absolutely fantastic. So even though I don't particularly buy into everything Mr. Brewer says, I have to take my hat off and credit where it's due. He was great. Yep. So yeah, it's we've had some CEOs on. It's been a lot of fun, and I've got a few more coming.
Yeah, just on Mr. Brewer. I don't know if you've seen the RNS this morning. He's got himself another position, and then it's got shades of Prem because it's been about forever. So it has Edenville, EDL. It's been about for far back.
Yeah, it's a coal asset, isn't it? It's a coal asset in Africa or something. I can't remember where it is. It's probably Zimbabwe or around that area, is it? And it's a lot of money spent on it. It's very much like Ben's Creek when that was held many years ago under a different entity. The name eludes me at the minute. It'll roll off my tongue just at the time when it's not appropriate to mention it. But yeah, I mean, they've been around for a long time. A lot of money's been spent on these assets. A lot of speculation on the value of these assets and yet to be realised. But, what we have seen is that there is some interest in these coal deals these days. And I'm assuming that's the interest from Brewer, but I'm just literally going on background and I've not really...
Yeah, I mean, I've just had a quick glance at the RNS. I've not been into it in too much detail. I'd be surprised if he's actually he's taking on the coal, because it's not really his thing, isn't it? It's battery metals. It's kind of his space. So
I mean, again, is it the Rewalker asset or something like that? The Endenville had. I mean, maybe they divested it, and I'm just behind in times,
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a company I've not looked at for a long time, Mike. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with it, because it was at 5 pence. I think they raised some money, and it's certainly up at sort of 7-8 pence at the moment. So yeah, there's been a few bob chucked into it. So, I mean, he's certainly done well at Marul. He's taken that for sort of circa 2 pence up to 14 at one point, and now it's sort of found his base level at sort of 10 pence. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does with that. Yeah, it seems.
What he should do now is get out of Marula, put somebody else in there that can take the company forward, and just keep going and being like a bit of a short-term turnaround guy. He'd probably find that he'd get a wave of followers and make a small fortune doing it. I mean, we saw our old mate Paul Johnson doing that once upon a time in the past, taking stakes in companies and getting a bit active out there, and God, he had some right results. As much as, again, I don't always agree with some of the things he did. I mean, he was fantastic at what he did as well at times. So he's definitely got an air of he works well under pressure, and there's not been many people I've seen as good as that for a long time. And you can call them promoters, you can say what you want about these kinds of people, but they definitely know how to get some fizz in the market. And right now, that's what investors are looking for.
Yeah, and even in the Aquis exchange as well, he's managed to get that momentum, which is quite an achievement, because it's hard to get momentum in Aquis exchange.
Incredible.
But it is a perfect storm scenario. If you do get a bit of momentum, it can spiral upwards pretty quickly. So, yeah, interesting. Just go back to your Twitter Spaces. I have joined several times, Doc, and you've never once let me speak. But I know I've got a technical issue with my phone, so I don't know what it is.
It's so boring, you know what I mean? That's all it is. But Mark, on the other hand, has got a really nice voice, and it's very exciting and thrilling to be involved with. No, to be honest, Ken, this is sorry, mate. No, and jokes aside, I mean, we would never ever, or I would never not let you come on. I mean, in fact, I'd welcome you to come, and hopefully we can sort the issue out. And know that one of the investors, Pete Harold Harada, I think his name is. He's the one that was kind of giving Mark a bit of a grilling over Prem. But this guy was continually blaming everything. You're not letting me in. There's people on there that don't want me to talk about things in the market. You're all sort of, it's all against me. And I said, look, have you been on your phone and give permission for your microphone and everything else? You've definitely enabled all your settings. He said, I've got no idea how to do any of that. I said, well, maybe we'll try that first. So I think it was his 13-year-old nephew took a quick look at it, fixed the problem, and now is a regular contributor. So, Kenny, it might simply be down to a little bit of a technology issue.
Yeah. I'm over 50 now, so maybe I'm just starting to lose it. But no, we do have a Stockbox phone in the office, so maybe for next Tuesday. It's 9:45, isn't it? Every Tuesday, 9:45.
Tuesday 9:45. I've had two different directors come on to me in the last couple of weeks saying that they want to come in June. I tell them what I say to anybody really, and that is try and focus on a subject 5 or 10 minutes. We will go a bit longer if it's super interesting, or there's a lot of people want to have it on. But we just try and keep moving on, different ideas, different thoughts, because if you labour on it too much, and I'm going to mention it on this interview today as well, unfortunately, but if you labour on one point too much, it can really grate on people. So, I've got some update on more acquisitions this week, and as much as I wanted to speak about it for longer, I had to accept that there's an audience of people that may not be interested, or of course they're interested in other things, and you have to respect that. So we move the conversation on, and we keep trying to, keep the activity and interest going, because I think people coming into this environment, speaking for the first time, it's okay when you've done it lots of times and you're reflecting on actually just coming out. But when it's the first time, it can be really, really, really difficult for people to get on with it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I must admit, I do like the Twitter Spaces platform. It's certainly it's something, the Stockbox, we've never really considered, Mark. Maybe it's something we should look at, since we do live Telegram Q&As, which seem to work well with some of the investor groups. I think we've done them for Prem.
We've got an agreement with me, Mark, and he never agreed to it, but I'm hoping that we can strong arm him that he doesn't do a live at 9:45 on a Tuesday. I'll pull his hair if he does. But other than that, no, I think you should do it. It's just the platform's difficult, Ken, I'll be honest. When you're actually trying to, if you do it on your own, and Dave Burton comes on, and I've had other people, and I've said, look, if you don't like Dave, and not everybody does, that's fine. You come on and be the co-host, because I'm sitting there and I'm trying to accept people in, and we've got to be cautious that we don't just let anybody talk. Because if it's a new face, I've got to go in and look, and you suddenly find that they're not even involved in the markets. They're involved in like pranks and jokes and scams, and suddenly they'll come on and make some inappropriate comment. So you have to be really careful. It's only ever happened once to me, because I'm quite careful about who I let in. But you've got to moderate as well. So you're moderating, you're talking, you're engaging. It's quite hard. So I think if you do it, even for Mark and his brilliance with media, you need to have a bit of support there too.
Yeah, I must admit, when we do the premieres, obviously everybody just sees Mark in front of the camera, but there is a few people behind it, doing split screens and bits and pieces, and trying to moderate.
Are you claiming some of the thunder here now? Is that what this is about? We're going to claim a bit of Mark's thunder?
No, let's not look to Kenny Mark's thunder. All I'm saying is, since he went to Zimbabwe, I've had to get a double door installed in the office, because I imagine when he comes back to Scotland, he's his head might be a bit bigger. So I've just made that preparation.
Never.
No, I'm only winding you up. You know that, Mark. But anyway, Mike, talk. Whoever you are today. So obviously, the last 3 or 4 weeks, you've been very active on Twitter. You seem to be back. I'm going to say bigger, maybe not badder. You seem to have mellowed as you've got older, but you're certainly back and you're certainly making a bit of noise about various things. But one of these things is obviously a company that's quite close to your heart, because I know I think you still have TR1 in that company, Timor Acquisitions.
Yes, mate. Yeah.
Obviously,
so one of the wonderful things in life is, as you get older, your testosterone level starts to sort of reduce and your balls shrivel up, whether we like it or not. It's a fact, right? So between the ages of 30 and 40, I'm now just half the man that I used to be, and probably will be half the man I want to be in the next 5 or 10 years. But, so it does, you reflect and you look at life and you say, is it worth all the aggravation and headache? And I'll be honest, more acquisitions has become a little bit of that. But I think the more involved, it's a horrible name, isn't it? Timor, I'm going to call it. But yeah, the more involvement I have with it, I just start to find problems and inaccuracies with the way that things have been reported. So it was put out to the public domain that the deal was going to be off because somebody had been abusive. And I'll cover that quickly. The reality is I got some intelligence that suggested the transaction was going to be delivered at an 80% haircut to the valuation that had been guided to the market. And I thought that was pretty horrific. And when we looked at the haircut that the vehicle, the acquisition was going to make, it was materially less, right? So they were going to revalue the business from 59 million quid to 35 or 40 or whatever it might have been. And then they were going to reprice the shell that I'm a shareholder of from 225 down to 0.5. So kind of thought that was a bit of a shithouse trick, if I'm honest, if that's the phrase that I'm allowed to use. And the fact that they'd been courting people at their offices, their advisors had, only a week or two earlier, and I had a video conference with the CEO, and they're like, yeah, we're going to raise money with institutions. And I was like, lads, please don't take me for a fool. Like, we know that the market is difficult right now. You're probably not going to get a huge amount of institutional interest. So we should perhaps take a bit more of a measured approach and maybe look at valuations of both, your business and even the vehicle, and just find a way to get the deal over the line. And I don't know if they just took it literally, but then they just blew the legs out on shareholders. And I don't understand it, because the aggregate difference in valuation to Megasteel would have been 1.5%. So it didn't make any sense to then to inherit all of these shareholders that were, furious with the valuation that you've just given. It was really unfair, and it didn't feel good. And then I obviously went and looked at it, and I realised that they implicated shareholders and certain individuals, of which I'm sure many people thought it was with some reference to me being abusive to the company. And I actually phoned the company and I said, look, this is the individual that's behind it, or these are the people that are behind it. They're of no interest to me. They're not part of our group. It wasn't me that's behind this, don't you? And he said yes. And the advisors confirmed, we know this was no doing of yours, Mike. Yet they still put that out, and that was a low blow, because I'd actually been quite direct with them and said, look, you guys are running a company as directors, and you've been unable to get a transaction over the line, and you've had the best part of a year to do it. You're spending money like hotcakes, and I think give somebody else a go. The market is challenging, but give somebody else a go, and let's move things forward. So I actually asked for one of the directors to resign on behalf of the shareholder group, but myself as a TR1. I said, look, how's about one of the directors resigns, a new guy goes in, and we can get some new sort of energy and blood into it. And sadly, it didn't happen. Then I start to see things like, Article 17, Rule of Ma, states that if you're notified that a transaction is finished, it's off, it's ended, you need to make an immediate notification to the stock market. And that didn't happen. And then when I went back and I looked at the message exchange with the individual that had notified me, they deleted the messages. And I was kind of like, look, are you trying to conceal and hide things? And I can substantiate all of this. And I just thought, you know what, this is setting a trend and a theme that it doesn't feel good to me, because you've got the messages getting deleted, you're sort of being implicated in being some sort of an abuser, which I'm absolutely not. And then when you speak to them on the record, and I had a witness with me, thankfully, on a phone conference, and they stated very clearly, you've done everything right, Mike, up to date, you've done everything right. And it's been hard work, Ken. So I don't want to keep going on about it, but all I would say is, if you're Charles Goodfellow and you're running as a director at More Acquisitions and you're not being paid and you have 500,000 shares, why on earth are you staying in post? Because 24 people have already emailed in and said, we have no confidence in the board. Why would you not step aside and let people with energy and the ability to come on and do a deal? One of the guys that I've proposed as myself, but with the support of an enlarged group, is an ex-nominated advisor, corporate lawyer. He's got a corporate finance background. He can come in and overhead can be really reduced. He's prepared to come in on zero consideration. The second proposed person is another director who's an ex-stockbroker, raised huge amounts of money over the years and been very successful. And he's prepared to come in on zero consideration until a deal gets done. So I just don't get it. I think they're being difficult. They're frustrating shareholders. I reached out to Rod McIlroy and I said, look, Rod, let's have a conversation. And he's just tried to pretend it's not happening. You're a chairman of a company, have some balls and deal with people on the level. And if you're not prepared to do it, stand aside, because you're wasting people's time, you're wasting energy, and you're wasting money. And actually, when I look back and I see some of the things that these guys have said, you're actually full of shit as well. And anybody who wants to go and Google Rod McIlroy and some of the deals he's been involved in, you'll see there's a common theme of outcome, and it's not that great. So, that's why I feel passionate about it, but I'm not going to spend the rest of the podcast kind of labouring on More Acquisitions.
So what is the desired outcome? I mean, obviously you intend to call an EGM, or you have put the paperwork in, or what's
it's really quite simple, Ken, isn't it? We've got a cat stuck up a tree and you tried to climb up it and fallen down multiple times, and we need the cat out the tree. So let's send Mark up. It's not that difficult to work out. We just need people who can actually get the job done, get a deal done, and then move forward. It's been put to me saying, you want this involvement. It's not about me. I'm a shareholder. I'm in the business of trying to make money. I'm not in the business of sitting on boards. I'm not in the business of running companies. It's been an absolute ball ache to get to this point. But I am somebody who's highly principled, and I'll do whatever absolute is necessary to get what's required for us to get a decent bang for our buck. That's all we want as shareholders. We're not getting it from the people that are involved. We don't want them to stay in post. They have received 24 emails from people saying we have no confidence in the board. Please step aside. A friendly, kind-hearted request. It's fallen on deaf ears. These guys are digging their heels in, and I don't know why, but it doesn't smell good to me. It's as if something isn't quite right. I'm quite happy to have a sit-down chat with McIlroy and with Charles Goodfellow, and I'm not a person that holds grudges, but I'm nobody's fool either. And if these guys want to, challenge or test the resolve of individuals, I can't speak for all the other shareholders, only myself. But I'll tell you what, I think some of these guys will rue the day that they started dicking about, messing people around, because that's what it is. It's about playing for time and messing people around. And you know what? We don't take kindly to that, and I definitely don't. So, they can do what they want. They can implicate and imply and, whatever they like about people being abusive. The only abuse that I've really put to these guys is to tell them straight in a good old northern way, you're fucking unable to do the job. Now shift out of the way, because we don't come from a world where you can just keep on rewarding anybody who's unable to do a job. And I think the parting line was, they can suck me cock. But, I perhaps shouldn't have said that. But, I guess you get to a point when you've had 6 days or 8 days of your life wasted and endless hours. And that's, I guess, from an uneducated man's mouth, the best I could come up with. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I've been as professional as I could be. I brought individuals in with legal training in the background. I brought individuals to have a sit-down meeting with one of the directors in Mayfair in order to remove the emotional aspect of it. And we've been really courteous. But you know what? They're getting to the point where they're taking the piss. And, I'll say something now. I'll spend plenty of time looking at this if this continues on. But, if they want to keep digging their heels in and being, fools about it, then, good on them. That just shows the character of the people. I don't get it. Anyway, you can see now I'm going off piste a little bit, because it's frustrating. Nobody wants to get into a big spat here. Nobody wants all the hassle. I certainly don't.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the last couple of RNSs, I mean, it's not. I mean, the market cap and the cash is probably the same. It's about an 800 grand market cap, and they've got 800 grand. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. when this vehicle was set up, there was no salaries. Is that correct, Mike?
There was no salaries. There was up to £100,000 bonus, which was within I think it's page 35 of the prospective document that said that the individuals would qualify for £100,000 bonus. I think when they were going through the Mega Steel transaction, because of the frustration that the guys at Mega Steel had, they wanted that one of the conditions where they weren't getting a bonus because they hadn't done a bloody good enough job, right? So if Mega Steel, and I've got this evidence to support what I'm saying, so I'm not just making spurious announcements here. I'm telling you what I've been told in writing, right? If Mega Steel felt that the board were not eligible to qualify for the bonus, then that's because they didn't believe that the board was suitable or deserving of that bonus. So they're not the right people to be in that position. So now the Mega Steel deal's gone. These guys should be moving aside. Shareholders can quite clearly see that if the people who were doing the transaction had said, unfortunately, you didn't raise the money that we needed on the terms that we were looking for, therefore, we think you should forego that £100,000. That's what was said. It was put to me in writing. And if that is the case, then that gives you a very good idea of the quality, of the ability of these guys that are sitting in at the board level. For crying out loud, lads, just get out of the way. Just move one side and let people come through who can do a job. These guys coming in that are being proposed, they're coming in because they've got a background. They're being able to do it. So, yes, they're not being remunerated. You've got poor old Goodfellow sitting there shaking like a shitting dog with 500,000 shares, and he's not being paid, but he doesn't want to leave. Come on. What's going on here? We've got tens of millions of shares, and we're asking him step aside, and he's refusing to do it.
Have they proposed anything? Have they proposed another alternative? Or not?
No,
nothing.
Propose nothing. All they've done is they've took up so much time and refused to engage at any level, really. And I sat down with the advisors with a colleague of mine from Red Mist, Seth Friedman. Thankfully, he was present, and we had a really, really nice chat. We had a really civil chat. There was a bunch of different people on the phone. I'm not going to name them, but they were the company's advisors, and they said, "Look, we get where you're coming from, and we're going to advise that we think there should be a change too." So now you've got the advisors verbally stating that. Okay. I've got a witness to support me saying it, and yet we're still at the same junction. And the thing is Charles is a broker for the advisor, and he's a director here. So this is one and the same person. Like, I've got no problem with Charles. He's a nice old stick. You know what I mean? He's a nice fella, but he's clearly not able to get this done. And I'm not prepared to sit round here while they fight around for much longer. They're taking the piss, actually. And it's really disingenuous. And then you start looking, you see people are deleting messages and all that. What's all that about? That's just a nonsense. So, look, I've got deep concerns actually now that the people's interests are not and they're certainly not reflective of the interests of shareholders. When your shareholders saying, Kenny, you can't get up that tree, send Mark up. You've got to know when to say, fair enough, lads, I'll step aside. Might be a little bit red-faced, might be a bit embarrassed you couldn't quite get up to the next branch or on the next rung of the ladder, but whatever it is, it's not personal either. That's the mad thing about it. Shareholders want to know that the people behind it have got the dynamic sense to take things forward, and there's a massive absence and lack of it.
Well, what do you think of the news that was out recently about the director buying shares in the company at, 0.72p?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. I mean, I think, if with the transaction the shares are worth 0.5p, should the company be worth more without a transaction? What we do know is that the company was being valued under the cash, which was what frustrated shareholders. And arguably, as a shareholder myself and representing a group, I was pretty much of the opinion that the valuation we'd been ironed out unnecessarily. What we've now seen is the director and chairman, Mr. Rod McIlroy, has been buying shares at 0.72 pence. So if the recommendation of 0.5 pence a share was fair, and that's what you believed, why are you buying shares now? I guess what you're doing is you're just trying to frustrate shareholders further, and that's actually, again, part of the problem. Directors who really are acting for their own self-interest.
And the outcome you'd want is to see this Mega Steel deal go through effectively.
No, to be honest, I actually thought the Mega Steel deal could be saved, but my view now of having some communications with, I'm not going to name the representative from Mega Steel, it's unfair to say totally clueless, but there are massive deficiencies in the knowledge. So very successful in the private company, one of the, I think, if not the biggest in the UK at Steel Wile wire provider, so they're very reputable, and they've built a good business from what I can gather. I'm assuming that when they do an audit and they do the due diligence on that business, all of the numbers that they've reported, all of them X's and O's, they marry up, and I'm assuming that all of that's correct. On that basis, it looks a good little business. But having spoken to the representative, the guy's tantamount to clueless. Honestly, I mean, I was blown away actually of how little knowledge these individuals have. And it's simple, Mark. You put your hand in your right pocket and you bring out 4 coins, and they're all the same £1 coins. And you put your hand in your other one and there's a single £1 coin. Well, you've got 1 and 4. When you put them together, you've got 5. I kind of explained that. The left hand is your vehicle and the right hand is your business. And if for any reason you drop something out your right hand, when you put it into the left hand, that's the total figure that you end up with. Well, he didn't seem to understand how valuations work, and I've just kind of cut it up and made it plain and explained it to, a 5-year-old could work it out, but I must have had that conversation 5 times. Doesn't seem to get it. Seems to think that he has to devalue the vehicle in order to substantiate the valuation of the vehicle of Megasteel, and he just doesn't seem to get it. And I've offered for him to speak to a professional corporate advisor that could actually explain to him where this has gone wrong. And he doesn't seem to want to carry on with it. So I would have liked to have sought a solution. The ideal solution would be we reprice the deal with more acquisitions. We find a transactional valuation that works for Megasteel, because we want Megasteel as an enlarged business with more acquisitions. We wanted it to work, but the idea would have been to do that. Get a new director, somebody who could actually, give the right advice and get things moving the right way and do the deal. But I think looking at it now, there's no chance of that happening, just simply because there's too many there's too much emotion in it, and a lot of it's not really coming from me. All the investors. It's coming from these guys. So look, I don't want to spend the whole time talking about more acquisitions, but it's a really unique situation. If you've ever read an RNS like the one they put out when they were talking about, a director's received abuse. You've been in the game 30 years, in the steel game. I mean, Kenny, you worked in industry. I worked in engineering for 15 years. Let me tell you, somebody calling you a fat fuck is a mild-mannered start to your day. So I can't understand somebody who's in the steel industry has received a comment and a nasty word and decided that they're pulling out of a deal. It's bollocks. I know, and I've got it on record, and I challenge anybody to legally take me on this. I know that deal was falling apart long before it, and they've used this as an excuse, and they're using it as a way to try and blow the valuation out of shareholders. And unfortunately, they're not pissing down my back and telling me it's raining.
Okay. So just go on. So what I was going to say, the crux of it, this deal was supposed to go ahead, and they can't make it happen. And effectively, you want to seek a solution. You want the board to step aside, get some people in who can actually make deals happen, and look at other acquisitions and potentially now.
Absolutely, and look when I spoke to the guys that are being proposed in the requisition, and those names up, I'm just being careful that just let it come out in the right channels. I'm trying to follow everything the right way. They've got the ability to do deals and finance deals. Been involved in numerous turnaround stories that have been successful. They're credible people. They're already directors, so we haven't got all this problem with eligibility and background checks and all of that. There's none of that. One guy's an ex-nominated advisor. He knows this market and industry inside out. He'd be the perfect person to work with Nigel. But the problem is you're dealing with people who are, they can't see their ass from their elbow because they're emotionally caught up in what's going on, and they're just unprepared to change the mindset. I'm now being seen as a villain here, and I can absolutely assure you, and I've said it on the record, we've got nothing to do with contacting people, being rude, abusive, or whatever. It's inappropriate. It's low-level stuff. It's not where it's not the cut of my jib, that. And I don't want to parley with any investors and shareholders that think that's acceptable. You won't be welcomed into my camp if you're behaving like that. And I don't want to have anybody that I work with represent that kind of behaviour. And the thing is, the board told me that they were aware that it was who it was, and I worked with them on it. They made me aware of it, and they confirmed it was nothing to do with me, as did the advisors. And yet they still put that announcement out. And it's just designed to antagonise people. It's designed to antagonise people and to create this kind of a situation. And I just don't know what they're getting out of it. But
It can get messy though, can't it, when you try and step in like this? I've seen it before. I mean, are you concerned about it just getting even more messy and destroying even further shareholder value, or do you only see this as the only option?
Well, look, at 0.6, 0.5, 0.7, it's at cash, as Kenny said. So if you think that the new board can get in, then the chances are, the new guys that I talked to, I said, look, this is the situation. I don't want anybody that's going to be, you're going to have to be strong-willed, and we don't want anybody who's going to come in and start, pissballing about. We need to move this and get a deal done. And the valuation they're proposing is half a penny, and shareholders are unhappy about it. And we need to see something material and worth fighting for. And it was put to me, and I can only speak personally now. I'm not speaking on their behalf, but it was put to me that doing a deal at a penny or a penny and a half is not out the realms of being, sensible. And let's go out there and get something done. So, based on where it is now, doing a deal, 800,000 of cash at 1.2 million quid valuation, I don't think that's unreasonable. I mean, you could even do it at one point. You could even do it at twice cash. We see it regularly. If you've got the right structure, there was no pre-money here. There was no pre-IPOs or any of that. Every shareholder who come into this came in at 1p. So arguably doing a deal at 1p or better isn't going to be that difficult because there's no pre-money in there. There's no mess. So it's a nice little shell. It's just, what we've got Rod and Charles holding each other's, pricks at work all day and not being prepared to let each other go and just move on. And I don't get it. I know somebody's going to tune into this and say, oh, yeah, really unprofessional the way that Doc talked about. I'm just talking straight. I'm talking, working man's language. And that is, these shareholders, some of them have got 2,000 or 3,000 quid and it's a fortune to them. Others have surprised me. There's people there with, 2.5, 3 million, 4 million shares. Didn't expect to have, painters, decorators. And these are the guys that are going to listen to this and they're going to relate to what I'm saying. So, if some sort of spivvy city guy quaffing in a bar or restaurant or whatever in Mayfair wants to say, well, Doc's very unprofessional, I couldn't give two hoots because, I've been doing some work for a company that are being retained by a billionaire to actually look at some of these inept pricks. And if I'm good enough for that, and I'm good enough for a lot of other sort of roles that I've conducted over the last decade and a half, I'm good enough to be able to speak my mind. And unfortunately, that's what it is. So look, I'm happy to move on. I just really don't want to dominate it too much longer with more acquisitions.
Just to put a line under it, Mike, there's no timescales in an acquisition, is there? It's not like an RT.
Well, it's been put to me that they have to do a deal within 2 years, but I think that might be an aim situation. I think on this standard list, I think they do because I think they've got till March 2024 to complete a transaction. But I think they can have another 6 months they have to enter the transaction and then they've got another 6 months to complete it. So there's plenty of time on the clock. But I'm not saying to the guys coming in, we want you to act fast because there's an incessant requirement. It's just because investors have waited so long to see a return, and I think it would be nice for people to see how you can generate opportunity and value from this kind of transaction. And just so far, what we're getting is this really dour and disingenuous way of operating. I mean, Kenny, if you're the chairman of a company and I've got a problem and I pick the phone up, if I own 6.5% of the company, whether you just, having to appease me or not, you take the call, you have the conversation. These guys are just cowards. They've got no sort of backbone at all. They've got no sort of razzmatazz about the way that they want to do business. They're just going through the motions. They've been at it for years, and it's just these guys are typical city guys, spiv around, doing little deals with penny small cap stocks, and they just got no sort of drive and desire to get things done. And that's just my opinion. Again, I'm speaking for myself today, lads. So it is what it is, and I'm hoping, and I just before we finish, an extended thanks to all the shareholders who've entrusted me with a lot of personal information. It won't be shared, and it will be destroyed when this is all over. But people that I've known in the markets for years and never known, full names, addresses, where they hold the shares, where they reside, what part of the world they're from, and these guys have come to me and said, we feel really strongly about this. And they've shared that information. So I want to thank them personally for doing that and entrusting me to hold that information. And they've emailed the board, a dozen or two have emailed the board to say we have no confidence, and they will not go. It's outrageous.
Oh, well, okay, so watch your space. And obviously the shares trading sort of 0.6, 0.7 range at the moment. So it's yeah. I mean, I'm going to say every cloud, but I mean, there's potentially an investment opportunity there. I'll maybe keep an eye on it over the next couple of days and see what happens.
There's an AGM coming up, isn't there? I guess that'll be a big watershed moment.
Well, there's a general meeting, and again, I've got to be careful because we submitted the requisition for EGM, and then the company notified me and said, and my comment was, look, I don't want this to have any financial implications to the company. Let's find a solution. So they were really clever, and they come back and said, well, in order to prevent having to spend any money doing an EGM, let's all just agree with the general meeting. Well, we've not responded to them formally yet, but we'll be needing to see some changes to certain resolutions, and we'll need a guarantee on the timing of that general meeting that it won't lapse, it won't shift, and if it does, then it will automatically trigger a certain sort of chain of events. What we're not going to do is let these guys frustrate us a minute longer. So if we have to go to EGM, we'll go to the EGM, and if we don't, and we can get it all sorted in the most economical manner, that would be my choice. And as I say, if Charles or Rod wants to contact me, they're more than welcome to. I'm a really fair bloke. I'm quite friendly, even if I fall out with people, don't hold grudges. I'd be more than happy to do that because I want to try and find a solution as fast as possible for shareholders. And I stated that at the beginning. My stance hasn't changed, but we are principled, and we're not gonna get messed around too much longer. So general EGM it is for now. General meeting aside, we'll still go for it because I think that's what's required. If we can make an agreement that we can make a few modifications to certain things so that general meeting is the most economical way of getting the result, more than happy to do that too. So we'll be responding to them in writing and formally, and then at that point we're sharing that with shareholders.
Interesting times.
Yeah. Oh well, we talked longer than we thought about that, but that's fine. What else is catching your eye? Just to finish off, Mike, what's catching your eye in the market? It's kind of funny. There's a lot of tech stocks doing really well. So there is. I mean, there's a couple of companies that we're doing some interviews. Mark, obviously, Ondo's doing really well. It's went for circa sort of 5, 6, 7 pence up to, I think it's at 20 plus pence today. It's
yeah. No, look, we talked about Ondo on one of the lives a few weeks ago. What we are actually finding is this coming together, this group, it's really able to churn out opportunities. So Ondo was one that was flagged, not at the all-time lows or 5p, but it was flagged. It's had a hell of a move since, and it seems to be that there's a couple of these things that are really catching on, and definitely Ondo's one that people are aware of. They've pegged themselves on the map now, so whatever happens, the secondary market are now watching. You've got the retail attention, that's for certain.
Yeah, 23 pence. Is that now? Wow. It's quite, it certainly seems to be blue every day. Yeah, but it's definitely, it's getting a lot of volume, so there's a lot of eyes on it. So there is. And obviously, Mark, you've done a few bits of media with the Ondo guys. In fact, you went to the investor.
Indeed, yeah, there was an investor presentation in London, yeah, with their broker and a few, sort of high net worths. So, I mean, yeah, I like what they're doing. I think they've got a great product. They've locked in all the proprietary IP there with the patents. They're hitting the US market. If this was listed on the Nasdaq, I think it'd be worth a fair bit more. What's the market cap, Kenny? 14 now, is it roughly? Is it, I guess, about 14, 15?
You keep talking. I'll have a look while you're there.
I guess it's about 14, 15. So, I mean...
But don't we hear that all the time? If they were listed over in America, it'd be worth 10 times this. I mean, well, why not go and list in America? That's a simple solution. But I'll tell you something. We as a country in the UK, we need a big tech story. We need a big winner because there's many small companies that really have quite interesting USPs and stuff like that, and we're really short of it. So whether it be Ondo or one of the others, we really need to see one of them. And I think it would hopefully give a bit of confidence that the UK is not dead, and I think at the minute it feels like it's dead on lots of fronts.
Yeah,
so
it does.
We really need a big Ondo move or something like it.
It'd be nice for London to get a decent winner. That's for sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. On the other side to it is, you look at things like Critical Metals. We flagged that at 10, 12p, and that they just did a premium raise. I mean, I don't think I've seen a premium raise. It was only a small premium, it was only a small raise, but you don't see that very often. And to be honest, I haven't even looked at the terms. I just looked on social media because I've been so caught up with this. And I saw somebody say, Critical Metals, they've gone and done a premium raise, and thought, what, hats off to them. because they had a move from 12p, 10p, 12p, all the way to 25p, 30p, back down again. And I'm hearing positive things. These guys who put the money in this level, put the money in at a bit of a premium, and I'm hearing that there's a lot of interest around it. And I'm hoping we can get Russell and those guys on to the live. And I don't have a position, so I've got no motive whatsoever, actually. But I'm hoping to get them on and have a chat to them as well. So, there are some glimmers of hope. There's some light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, definitely. It's not sector specific at the moment. It's just it's a certain few stocks, and it tends to be the ones that have been, flag waving for the last 18 months when everybody else has been burying their heads. So these guys usually come out the traps first because people remember them. So they remember the companies that still try to engage with shareholders. Not so much during COVID, but I mean it's almost carried on since COVID that companies are they just seem to be going through the motions, but still not seeing these crazy massive discount placings. It's got to be.
Come on, Ken. Jesus Christ, we had one last week. It was was it Fab Antibodies or whatever at 20p, 25p, raised money at 5p, and it was trading at 100p during COVID.
I've never seen that one. No, nothing.
No, gotta get eyes in the back of your heads, Ken.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I don't spend as much time.
Assos. What about Assos? Any thoughts on that? I mean, even if you're playing a safer area of the market, even they've been ironed out. Raised money, I think, at £4.18. Mike, he's gonna my head now. Mr. Sports Direct.
Oh yeah, Mike. Whatever his name is.
Ashley.
Big Mike Ashley. I mean, he's been buying shares through Fraser's Group in them. He was buying them at, I think, 4.50, 4.30, 3.70. He was down at £3.50 this week, and they did it, and they'd done a raise higher up. And Mike Ashley has been gobbling them up. And you can bet you bet bullets to a barnyard door, they will do something. So even when you're playing and rolling the dice in the big end of the markets with Assos, even they took a massive drop. And even when you've got Mike Ashley, I know a lot of the guys were talking about Andrew Austin at Austin Capital participating in the recent URAH raise, and that sort of got a bit of excitement going at 2 to 3p. They're back at 2.5 good value. But that's small cap, that's tiny penny shares. If you're interested, have a look. Austin Capital have participated, which is Andrew Austin behind Kistos and Rockrose. But, you look at Big Mike Ashley, what a guy. He's made and lost fortunes, and he's hoovering these up at £4.50 a couple of weeks ago, opening a position. And investors are still not wanting to buy him at £3.50 yesterday or the day before. So amazing opportunities out there. Some real opportunity, but some real horror stories as well for anyone who's longer lots of different sectors. It's tough market.
Yeah, definitely is. But there we go. Well, I think you've got a barbecue to go to, Mike. You were telling us off here that you were going to. Well, I think you need to.
Well, I'm not in trouble because it takes about 3 hours to do Souvla, if not a bit longer, and I've not even started it, so I'm going to go and light the coals, and we'll be eating a little bit later. But it's all very well, and thanks for your time, thanks for the platform, thanks for everything else, and Mark, you just keep being a super special guy, and Kenny, behind every great strong man is another strong Scotsman.
Indeed.
Yeah, well, that's not what you said earlier on. It was a bit more colourful than that. So it was fat, horrible, and angry. I think that was
angry. Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't mind the fat and horrible, but you leave the anger to you.
I didn't use the fat. I didn't use fat, Kenny. I think you're a wonderful man. And I was just pulling your leg. And I don't take life too seriously. So for any of these guys who are sitting out there going, oh my God, I can't believe the colourful language. Well, look, lighten up. Life is not as bad as people think. And whatever happens with more acquisitions, I will not be crying over me cornflakes tomorrow morning. That is for certain.
Okay. Good to hear.
All right.
Thank you
cheers,
again,
Mike.
Doc.
Cheers. Thanks.
Take care. Thank you for listening to another podcast from Market Musings with Ben and Russell. Tune in next time.